So I hope you had some good food, because that's all we're going to talk about now. People are still rolling in from the nice rooftop deck. This rooftop, a heavy party spot in the last couple of months when these clothing hip-hop guys were still hanging out here, and we're so happy that we can be here today. It's a beautiful day, and thank you all for being here and joining us. A lunch talk is something that is always a special point of a conference, because you want to have someone on stage that really knows about lunch and knows about food, and is also different to all the other stuff that's happening during the day. And I'm so excited because two very busy people took time off their schedules to be here today. Charlene Johnson-Hadley is the executive chef at Red Rooster in Harlem. Does anybody know here Red Rooster? Have anyone ever eaten there? Great. It's like 2/3 of the audience. I love this restaurant and couldn't be more excited. Charlene, who has been in the Samuelsson's high-flying food world for a long time, is here today to share her secrets about how to get things done in the kitchen. And Dan Charnas, the journalist who is here to interview her, has written a whole book about how chefs organize their kitchens and how you can translate that to your day-to-day getting things done. So please welcome on stage Charlene and Dan.
All right, thank you everyone. So I think maybe to kick this discussion off, we should see a little video about this subject, this concept we're going to be talking about today called mise en place. Anybody heard the term before? So why don't we roll the video and then we'll have a little discussion after.
What is mise en place? Mise en place is the world's most potent personal organization system. It's the system powering professional kitchens all over the world, and it was pretty much a secret system until now. A new book is the first to reveal the 10 ingredients of mise en place. It's a system that anyone can use. Ingredient 1, planning is prime. Chefs spend a lot more time planning than we do. Chefs are ruthlessly honest about time. Ingredient 2, arranging spaces, perfecting movements. Chefs carefully arrange spaces to conserve motion, saving time and energy. We can too. Ingredient 3, cleaning as you go. Chefs maintain their systems. Chefs don't wait to put things back and clean things up. Ingredient 4, making first moves. Chefs know what to start first, because they know that 1 minute of work now can save many minutes later. Ingredient 5, finishing actions. Chefs don't wait to finish, because they know that nothing is truly done until it's delivered. Ingredient 6, slowing down to speed up. When work gets hectic, chefs don't panic. They calm their bodies to calm their minds. They get things right before they get them fast. Ingredient 7, open eyes and ears. Chefs balance internal and external awareness, remaining focused and open. Ingredient 8, call and callback. Chefs streamline and confirm all essential communication. This is what it sounds like.
Order, edamame! Edamame, 43 pickup.
Ingredient 9, inspect and correct. Chefs know excellence requires vigilance. Chefs check their work. Ingredient 10, total utilization. Chefs aim for no wasted time, space, motion, resource, or person. You can learn how to use these 10 ingredients. Just read Work Clean.
All right, a little helpful to understand the concept of mise en place, not just in terms of the kitchen, but in terms of a philosophy of life. When you see, have you seen this video before?
I haven't.
Does it feel?
I haven't. This is my first time.
Does it feel true to you?
Yes, it is very true to me, definitely.
That's good. Okay, so we're starting from a good place. So, my name is Dan Charnas. I'm the author of this book, Work Clean, that inspired this this series of talks that we give about this culinary system that actually has a lot of application outside the kitchen. I am not a chef. I was for a long time an executive in the music business, a record producer, and then I became a author, journalist, and a professor now at Tisch School of the Arts. So I have zero kitchen experience. What I do have a lifelong experience with is waste and failure. Observing it as an executive and observing it as a professor. Really thinking about how to be excellent. Why do things work for some people and not for others? Why do some students succeed and why do some students fail? And so while I'm considering these questions over the course of a career, and I'm also reading, because I'm just a fan of them, I read chefs' narratives like Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential and Michael Ruhlman's The Making of a Chef. You know, these are incredible books, just not about cooking, but about what it's like to be a chef. And reading these books, the solution for these problems that I experienced on a daily basis seemed to be evident. This system of mise en place, this way of life, this disposition towards time, space, motion, and resources. And there wasn't a book to read about this system. So I decided, since I was a journalist, to write it. And in order to write it, I went and I interviewed over 100 culinary professionals, Chef Charlene being one of the most important of them. And so I wanted to bring Charlene on stage today to talk a little bit about her personal experience with this system and how it might be applicable to you guys. So with that, I want to introduce Charlene.
Hi, everyone.
So she is a chef with the Marcus Samuelsson Group. And also you're going to be very shortly moving into a teaching role of your own. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Right. Well, soon I'll be working for Klaus Meyer. And if anyone is familiar with the Noma restaurant, he was one of the founders of Noma, and he has now left that restaurant and he's working on his own. He has what's called the Melting Pot Foundation, and basically he opened a restaurant recently here in New York called Agern, and it's in Grand Central. And next year, in the early quarter of next year, he'll be opening a culinary school, restaurant, community center in Brownsville, Brooklyn, and I'll be there.
Excellent. So, you know, knowing a little bit about your story from Brooklyn, you were going to college and you decided to take a right turn and go to culinary school, which was the French Culinary Institute
Yes.
downtown. As a young chef, how did you begin to learn this system, and what were some of the most difficult lessons for you to learn?
Well, in school, there's no other way but mise en place. So there's no way around it. You're forced into this system that becomes a part of who you are as a chef. So day one, you're taught, you're dicing, and you put these here, and you organize, and all the onions are together, all the carrots are together, all the celery are together. They're all cut this way. And if you can't, you get to the point where you cut them all a particular way. It's just not an option. So it's a discipline. And it is, disciplines, when repeated, just become a way of life.
Why is it not an option, though? Why can't I, if I don't chop the onions at 2 o'clock, why can't I just chop them at 5:45, 15 minutes before dinner service?
Well, if you're in a restaurant and this is happening, you will be torn to shreds. You know, the chef will be all over you, most definitely hurt your feelings. Most definitely. And, you know, your peers would be disappointed in you, and they will put you in a position where you would either want to leave or do better.
So you're saying that you can't be late with dinner. Like if you have a bunch of, 50 people coming for the first seating at 6 o'clock, you can't just tell them to wait until 8 when you're ready.
Absolutely not. Right. When people are hungry, my mother would say to me as a child, a hungry man is an angry man. Okay? And it's very true. You don't want to mess with people when they're hungry. So you are prepared. You are prepared, and you feel the pressure in the room, whether or not you feel it within yourself, and you just get up there and you do what you have to do. You have to be ready. There is not an option.
So this is the ingredient, the sort of behavior that chefs have that I like to call planning is prime, right? That planning has to come first, literally first, because chefs most of us work with the calendar, right? Our projects are due on a specific day. Chefs work against the clock. Dinner's at 6. Dinner's not getting pushed back. Dinner can't be late and bumped until breakfast.
No
okay?
explanation, like, hey, I need 15 minutes.
Right.
No.
Can't do it. So the chef has to be honest with time. And one of the ways that chefs, especially like my visits to the Culinary Institute of America, one of the ways that young culinary students are taught this is to always square the list with the schedule, right? And in fact, if you don't square the list with the schedule, you're actually not squaring your body with your mind. This is how it works, okay? The list is a product of your overactive mind. All the things you want to do on a given project, all the things you want to do in a given day. How many of you, by show of hands, finish everything on your daily task list? All right. How many of you have feelings, some sort of emotion associated with not finishing the list that you've created for yourself? Whether it be anger, frustration, guilt, right? A lot, right? That comes from not squaring your mind with your body, right? The task list is very effective for dumping all of those things out of your mind. But if you don't square that with when you're going to do that, which is what the schedule rules, your mind is not in collusion with your body because the schedule rules where your body is in time and space. A chef has to understand that they can't give themselves too much to do. They have to give themselves the right amount of things to do. Otherwise, dinner's not going to be ready at 6. Does that sound true?
That sounds right. Generally, when working on a project, I would start with the thing that takes the most amount of time. So if it's roasting a pork shoulder, let's start with that. But then if it's something that I don't like to do, I follow up with it right away. So the longest, and then the thing that I hate. So if I don't like cleaning, the skin from the roasted eggplant, that's what I'm going to do next. Because if I leave it till the last, it's going to be a struggle. So the longest, the thing that you don't like, and then follow it up with the things that are easy and or quick. And that's where I would end.
But let me challenge you a little bit on this. Culinary student comes into the kitchen and is really nervous and anxious about all the knife cuts that they have to do. Or they have to prep a whole bunch of raw ingredients, so they do the worst first, right, like you're advising. And then they turn around to put it in the oven, and they realize that they haven't turned the oven on. That oven should have been getting warm while they did that other stuff. Mm-hmm. How do you square some of the small tasks that have to come, when they need to come, even if they're not urgent? Because all of us sort of experience this tension between the important and the urgent.
As a chef, in all honesty, the moment you step into the kitchen, you turn on all your appliances. You haven't touched a knife. You might not even have changed your clothing yet. You turn on everything. You blast all the ovens. So if that's not done, you came into the room without thinking about what you're supposed to be doing. Also, while you're doing a project, you ought to be thinking about what's next. So in that time that it took you to cut all of what it is that you cut, you should be thinking about what's next. And so if you forgot to turn it on, you had plenty of time like, oh, let me stop what I'm doing, turn this on, get back to work. If you got that far into a project and you didn't think of that, you're not squared away. You're not thinking of the next step.
So what you're saying is that routines and rituals are a really big part of a chef's success in a way that a chef is able to organize so much material and so much labor.
Right, definitely.
Can you talk a little bit about the code of ethics in the kitchen? Not just your disposition to, you know, time, space, motion, resources, but also to each other?
Well, you have to respect space. The kitchen, kitchens in general are generally a tight space. And so you're walking with sharp knives, you're handling hot and heavy pots and boiling water and roasted meats and things of that nature. You need to make sure that you're doing some of that calling that was displayed in this video. You know, if I'm coming down, if I'm turning a corner, before I even hit the corner, I'm saying out loud, corner, because if that potential person is coming, I want to make sure that I'm not bumping into them, potentially burning them, hurting somebody or something like that. You have to make sure that you're speaking up, so if you're walking, you're behind somebody, you let them know that they're behind you so they don't take a step back. And you have to think of accidents before they happen. So I think a lot of what you're going to be hearing coming from me is always the next step. You have to be kind of like 5 steps ahead. So if you're behind someone, you call to let them know that person should respond. So it's like a call and response. You know, if you are not playing that game, that response game, you are not in the game. You have to be, you have to have, like I said, like kitchens are tight spaces. You need to make sure that all of what you need is right where you can reach it. If you have something that you're going to need at some point of the night, it should be within this radius. You know, it should be within a 360 degree. You should just have to reach for it. Nothing but maybe backup items should be further away. And then you don't wait until the last moment to get it. So if I have 25 orders of something and I'm down to 5, if I have the moment that I have an opportunity, I'm gonna stop and get more because I don't wanna wait till I'm down to nothing, then it's gonna set me back. It's all about staying ahead.
Yeah, and think about how that relates to our own physical and virtual spaces. You know, and most of us work, you know, our physical workspace, our desk used to be very important in terms of organization, but even more so now our digital devices are virtual spaces in which we work and that have to be set up just as carefully as a chef or cook sets up her station. We have to know where our apps are. We have to set up workflows for ourselves on our computer that make it easy to find things, especially with regard to email, because so many of us spend so much time finding lost things. And it not only takes time, but it also takes a lot of our energy, our mental energy that we need for the actual work that we're doing. I wanted to ask you a couple questions. What is this Yes Chef business? Why is it so important in the kitchen? Because it doesn't seem to be as important in our corporate world, this idea of hierarchy or respect, or why is that? Could the kitchen run without that?
I don't think a well-run kitchen runs without Yes Chef. It's funny that you bring that up because my chef is Chef Marcus, and he has a book called Yes Chef. And basically the theory of Yes Chef is, first of all, confirming that, you know, giving the respect that you're the boss, you're running things. Chef is essentially French for chief or boss. So you are constantly acknowledging that that person is running the show. Also, if I'm in a restaurant, you're constantly being told what to do. You're being given orders by your expediter, you're giving directions by your chef, and you need to respond. It is very important. If you are not responding, it indicates that you don't understand or you don't care. So calling back is very important. It confirms that you heard and you understand and you're going to do something. So, you know, in the business world, I think a lot of people, when they're sent an email and it's a task in the email, the quickest response is confirmed. And that indicates that you've gotten the message and you're going to do it. And that holds you to, you know, it just gives you accountability, essentially. So that is very important in a restaurant. That's what Yes Chef really comes all down to.
I worked in a number of different corporate environments and never really saw the kind of care toward communication that I saw in the kitchen, except when I started working on a TV series that I'm working on right now. And film and TV production is incredibly ruled by the clock. And so not only does the preparation ratchet up, but the communication. Everybody is oriented towards call and call back on our set. I mean, it's really remarkable when that happens. The communication tightens up immediately. So we have about 5 minutes left, I'm told, so I do want to get to what I think is an incredible story. You know, when I first interviewed you, I had asked you sort of which of these sort of principles resonate with you, and you talked about the principle of finishing actions, and you told me the story about the mushrooms and keeping yourself centered. Talk a little bit about that story, and then maybe talk about how you taught a little bit of that principle to your daughter.
Okay, well, at the time when we were talking, I was working at American Table in Lincoln Center, and that was also stems from the Marcus Samuelsson group. What happened is that I was preparing a variety of dishes, and one of the dishes was a mushroom soup, and I had tons of mushrooms, probably 20 cases of mushrooms, and each case was like 10 pounds, so you can only imagine. And
you had to process yourself.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I was there. It's just me. I didn't have prep cooks. I didn't have people to do the dirty work for me. It was just me. And so these are button mushrooms. If you're familiar with button mushrooms, they are absolutely covered in soil. It's just like into a box, you know, just out of the soil into a box. And I was kind of like having a little bit of a freak out because I had all these things in front of me and no one to help. And so I'm like, okay, Charlene, what scares you the most? You need to do that first. And that's cleaning all these mushrooms. And then I found myself doing other things that I could easily do once all the big projects are done. And I just had to stop myself and say, stop it, go and clean these mushrooms. And basically pull myself from making a faux pas, which is doing the smaller things first, go and attack the larger project, dunking them, cleaning them, and then got them on. And the feeling of accomplishment at the end, it took me maybe an hour, but the feeling of accomplishment allowed me to work steadily afterwards because I had all these other things, but the project that was weighing the most on my brain was done. You know, and then I can easily work on all these other things.
So you kept stopping, and you kept stopping yourself from stopping, essentially,
Yes.
because there's value in finishing the action.
Right.
And then you went home and you sort of applied it to a bit of
my
your
daughter.
homework. Okay.
Yes. So my daughter is an artist. You know, from 3 years old, she's been saying, I'm an artist. And she is. She draws very well. She paints, all these things. And I would come home and they're strewn all over the house. And a lot of the time she would come to me with explanations. Oh, Mommy, I'm gonna do this, but I'm thinking I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna change that, I'm gonna change this. And it's always an explanation. And I'm like, so one day I just said, you know, Chloe, you know, you're a very smart girl. You need to focus and complete your actions. And she goes, I know. And I was really shocked when she said that, because most of the time, when you tell children, I don't know, to get it together, essentially, they don't like to hear that. And so her saying, I know, really kind of caught my attention. And she goes, But then she says, well, Mommy, sometimes I have to do a lot of things at the same time. And I said, yes, well, start with what's most difficult and then work your way down to what's easy. And so I said, look at this. This is 90% done. This is 50% done. This is 10% done. All of these, even the 90%, it's incomplete. You can't present it. You know, you don't have a sense of accomplishment until it's done. And you look at it and it's done, and you can give it in, or, you know, whatever it is that she's doing. I mean, you know, at the time she was 10 years old, so it's literally just drawing. And she had always talked about drawing and selling. We have an annual block party, and I had that speech with her, and it was probably in January. And our block party is every August. And it was really funny. The day of the block party, I'm looking all around the house for Chloe, and something just told me to go outside. And I opened the door, and she had yarn strewn from like on the fence, and then she had clothespins holding up all of her drawings and her paintings, and she had a price list that she wrote in my Sharpie, because you know chefs are never without their Sharpie, and you know, scissors and papers for little children that wanted to come by and draw. And she had done this all by herself. I mean, she got a table, she set it up outside. She didn't ask for any of my help. And that is like my best example of showing someone, you know, when you get to a point, you know what it is that you want to do, you just have to do it. Sometimes you get up, you know, you have to kind of bang your head against the wall. Whatever is difficult, you have to kind of like push through whatever it is that's difficult and get to the point where you've accomplished and you can sit back. And she sold all of them, and she got plenty of little admirers on the street. The children are like, oh, wow, you did that. Little boys that thought it was cool that she was into Pokemon and such. So, you know, it was amazing how that applied to her as a child in her everyday life.
And it's amazing that we stop ourselves as artists, as craftspeople, as managers, as writers, as whatever. We stop ourselves at 90%, 95%, and don't do that extra work to actually deliver. So these are some of the things that I talk about in Work Clean. I know we're running short on time. Do we have time for a question or two? Anybody, questions for Chef? Oh, here's one.
What was it like? You know, so long as you brought up that you're a mom,
Yeah.
what's it like to have to organize your life in both the structure of a family and the structure of work, like being a chef?
It's most definitely a juggle. I'm juggling a lot. You know, I have my days that I have to structure at work. I have to structure making sure that my children, because I have a son as well, my children are completing their homework and, you know, not spending any time. But like, I think it's all about research, knowing what you have to do next, knowing what you do throughout the week, you know. I know that I have to be here today. I know tomorrow's picture day. You know, I know that. So I have to have a lineup of what it is that I have to do. And everything just comes back to organizing your time. That's really what it is.
Thank you so much for coming here today, for sharing your chefly wisdom with us. Good luck on the next venture post Samuelsson Group. And for those of you interested in exploring these concepts further and reading a little bit more about Chef Charlene and Marcus as well, Work Clean is the book. You can find it at workclean.com or on Amazon or wherever fine books are sold. And thanks for having us.
Thank you.